Hello guys. Okay, so in this video we will be talking about the remaining part of the chapter from decision making. As we saw, when we make decision, there are a lot of areas, pitfalls and pratfalls that you have to be careful in order to make the right decision in many aspects. And we saw some potential danger like confirmation bias, gambler's fallacy, and emotional and unconscious aspect that could influence our decision making. So, what would be another way to increase that we make the right decision in life? Now, I'm talking in general as life because there are things that you want to choose. Again, when you make decision, we're talking about little important than just what to eat for dinner, where to go for a movie, what do you do for this weekend kind of decision. It is like little big decisions, what would affect your lifelong trajectories. So in order to change that, the one important way is modeling. Now if you think of modeling, there are so many ways that you see modeling. It could be symbolic modeling, it could be self modeling, it could be your own story, that self story that you used as an example. And there's another way look at is symbolic modeling. Is you look at characters that has succeeded in their life by making right decisions. So watching someone give help increase helping. So you see that this is called pro-social behavior. When somebody is helping, that modeling helps you to increase those kind of similar behaviors, a reminder of what you should do. So that should be like a self-modeling. We also call when you create your own video that can change how you make decision in your life, shows you the consequence of helping. So this is, I'm using the example of helping, but it can apply anything. Now sometime when you look at modeling, you may want to see what other people did. So one example, typically on campus we have this program for freshmen, and in graduate and undergraduate programs, when you join the program, we choose a mentor for those undergraduate and graduate students. When you have a mentor, you get to talk to them and you get to know about their journey in that education and their process of decision making in that particular the field. So for example, when I was choosing clinical psychology, I got to talk about I had opportunity to talk to a couple of senior students, and I saw how they chose certain setting. And when I learned that there's opportunity to work in jail, and what would that require, your skill set, all those requirements and skill set, if you have it, what you're doing is you're kind of solving problem. Okay, I checked the list. Okay, I have this, I have this, I have this. I don't know about this fourth skill set. Okay, I'm going to do some research and come back here and check it. So this will help you to figure out what kind of consequence should you expect, because again, decision making is not 100% guaranteed that you're going to have the perfect outcome. It's about probability, and your job here is to avoid as many pitfalls and pratfalls as possible. Competency, if you're trained to help, much more likely to give help, right? Give that assistance. So if you are already trained in that field, for example, to me, working in jail was already part of my experience. As an undergrad student, I did internship in Sri Lankan prison. I worked with inmates for 6 months, and I had that in my repertoire. So I have that skill set. Only thing was how the system works here. That was the only requirement I need to look into, and I need to do background check, all that information. So your competency comes from in some of the prior knowledge, as we talked earlier, and also your attitude about the certain setting. So that can help you to choose correct approach. Communicate with others. Now this part is extremely crucial in every walk of your life, not only about decision making in every aspect. So critical thinking is about changing how you think, changing how you solve problems, changing how you calculate certain outcomes and also dangers, right? So communicate with others. You might want to run a couple of scenarios with those individuals and ask them, how do they feel about your plan for certain outcome. You show that path and you figured maybe it is not the best thing, because based on their knowledge they say that no, that path lead to a little bit of challenge. In my case, let's say I chose the jail setting to do my internship. They might say, well, if you go that route, you might be in trouble because sometime there are difficult individuals in jail, and so on and so forth. I'm just saying, I never had to face any trouble in jail setting when I was working there. So communicating will help to increase the accuracy of your decision making process. And there's one approach called foot in the door. Now, get someone to agree to a small request. Now, this is a strategy when you try to make decision. So sometimes you have a big project, like let's say it's a huge project, and you cannot convince everybody about your plan. In order to get them to do something bigger, you might need to convince them to do a smaller part. This is one strategy that you would use, and that would be like, here's an example. Sign this petition in favor of safe driving. Now, the signing a petition might be very simple task. Why? Because it's not a big deal. You're not committed to anything. You don't need to fulfill any kind of payment or requirement or training. It's just like you're signing this petition. But as you start that, now there will be a new plan inside that project, which would be like donate money to a safe driving campaign. Now that will be a little bigger. So you might think like, okay, well, I already signed the petition, might as well. So you already agreed to be part of that campaign, and that will make you do the bigger part. So foot in the door approach is another way to look at making decision and convincing other people. So this critical thinking is also huge part of persuasion. So if you have a larger project and you want to convince people, you might want to break down into small pieces and pitch that idea to other people and see if you can have your foot in the door process, and that might lead you to a bigger project later on, right? So in this process, I do want to show you guys how to make decision. Now, this is a big part, in this class I teach, because when you make a decision, again, if I ask you to do something simple like 2 times 2 would be 4, 8 times 5 would be 40. So something like that. It's a simple math because you already know, you memorize, or you just do fast calculation. But if I ask you to do something like, minus 3y equal to, I don't know, 15, I have no clue. But if I give you this kind of algebra, you might need to do multiple steps before you find out what y value is, and y value is for each, right? So you need to do a whole bunch of math there. This might be easier if I add another x here, that make it a little complicated. So you might need to do a whole bunch of process here before you know what is y and what is x, right? And when you do this, you have to have a plan. You have to have a piece of paper. You have to have whole steps in that problem solving process. So when you make decision, we encourage do the same thing again for big decisions. So framing the question, how you word the question matters, right? You definitely want to make it sure that it is clear to you, and also it helps you to develop some alternatives. So these are the options, must have options. Now, I have worked with students for I think I have worked with over 5,000 students in my this teaching career in CSUSB. And all those students, I hear that some of them have like a fixed mindset, which means they have chosen, let's say, psychology as their major, and they continue taking classes, but they don't perform well. They start, kind of getting off the track. Now they feel like, I don't know what to do. Now, when you hit that kind of dead end, what do you do if this is your only option? That's a problem. Why? Sometime life happens. You cannot tell everything goes as along with your plan. So having options definitely help you to think, okay, psychology was my major, but seems like this subject does not fit with me. What else do I have? Maybe sport, maybe art. I don't know. So you have to have few options when you start this process of decision making, and that's a simple task. How about that's, I mean, somewhat bigger task. How about choosing a school to go do your graduate studies? Now if you only have, let's say you're shooting for like a high reach school, you have like Harvard as your goal. Now if this is your goal to go to school, and I would definitely encourage you guys to pursue that. But if this is only school that you're applying, there's so many steps. You have to have your GRE, you have to have your good GPA. GRE is graduate record examination, recommendation letter. You have to have your statement pretty strong, right? You have to have that part. You have to have your research experience. So I'm telling you these because I've been working on my process of applying for a PhD. Research projects that you have completed, all these are required. Now especially school like Harvard University, they will have very high standard. Everything should be like on top. And even I am the smartest guy to apply for that school, if that is the only option I chose to apply for a PhD, there's, let's say they receive about, I'm just making it up, I don't know exactly, they receive about 1,000 application every year, and out of 1,000 they only choose 5. Now that's not even 1%, right? That's not even that's like, I don't know how, if I do this, 1% would be 10 people, and 5% would be zero point 0.5 people. So that's like 0.5 out. Let me clean this. Let me clean this. So from probability perspective, if you look at this scenario, if they have 1,000 applications, and they only choose 5 students, that means I only stand 0.5% chance of getting into Harvard University. Now we talked about probability. What is the chance of me not getting in that school? Well, pretty darn high, right? That would be 99.5%. I am not going to that school. Is that a good plan if I only have this Harvard University as my, prospective school? Probably not, because I'm taking a high risk, because the chance of not getting in is higher than getting in, way higher than getting in, right? So how about I choose a couple more schools? Let's say Harvard is one, Arizona State University is another one, Nevada State University is another one. So if I have few more options, and let's say in compared to other school, Harvard school, these schools take, let's say, 500 application, and but still they only choose 5 students. Nevada University, I don't know, but let's say they only take 100 application and they still take 5 students. Now my chances of getting into Arizona State University would be 1%, which is better than 0.5%, right? Going to Nevada school is 5%. See that? When I see these odds, well, that's cumulatively, if I add these, in terms of percentage, A or B or C, that's more easier. It's not A and B and C. I don't need to get into all those three schools. So 0.5%, 0.1, 0.6 together. If I have 3 options together, total chance of me getting into one of these schools is now 6.5%. Do you see that? So I increase my odd by increasing number of options. So that's why you definitely need to have options. List of consideration. So when I go to school, what do I care? These are requirements, right? These are requirements. I'm not talking about requirements. I'm talking about what are some areas that I need to focus on. Well, do I care about prestige, right? Prestige. Yes, I do. That would be my one consideration. Salary after my graduation, definitely. I care about salary and job opportunities. Now that they sound like similar, I do care about that. Distance. Now, do I want to go to Harvard, to the Boston, Massachusetts? Probably not. Do I want to go to Nevada or Arizona? Well, it seems like closer than Boston, so might be better option for me. So distance matter. Excuse me. And how about tuition fee? Which one will have the biggest debt you would carry after graduation? So I need to weigh all those factors. So these are considerations. These are things that I need to consider when I apply for PhD program. And as I consider those options in each alternative for these factor will function differently, and this factor will function differently. I lost my mouse. So these factor will function differently in each school, and depending on school I choose, I will rate each of these options, considerations for each option, and I will see how my decision will look like at the end. So you weigh those consideration, you weigh those alternative, and you calculate your decision. Trust me, I have used this when I wanted to go to my country, go to Nepal, and I found amazing outcome in my calculation, because it took me maybe about 20 minutes, because every options you have, every option you want to try, and every consideration you have for your problem. So once you are pretty aware about those factors, doing this calculation takes 20 minutes. Guess what? That 20 minutes saves you money. 20 minutes saves you money is saved, saves your time, and also your satisfaction. Satisfaction is good, whichever option comes out to be the best for you, and also your safety. Now, there are so many things you can continue writing about depending on what kind of problem you're trying to solve. So these factors definitely come into play when you make a decision. So let's take a look at a problem, right? So my mouse keeps losing from the screen. Okay. Now, first thing what you have is to frame the problem. Frame the decision that you're trying to make. What is the decision you're trying to make? So I need to buy a new house. I'm going to add a word here. I need to buy a new house. What is the major problem? I need to buy a new house, and I clearly stated that. That's the step one. For me, that was one concern long time back, right? So let's say this is my concern, and I want you guys to try this. Try your problem, write your problem, and put it in a clear statement, not a question. Don't write like, do I need to buy a house? Why you don't want to put in a question form? The answer is yes or no. No, right? It's a very clear, either yes, either no. So your answer would be straightforward, and you feel like, okay, no, I don't need to think about it. Yes, okay, let's go and do it. Now, buying a house is a major commitment. Now, if you're buying a house, like an average person, you're putting some amount of down payment, and you're tied with this mortgage for 30 plus years. That's almost like most of our youth lifetime commitment. So when you decide, you definitely want to try more than just like whimsical decision. Okay, I like to buy a new house, I'm going to buy tomorrow. Unless you are filthy rich. If you are filthy rich, my problem solving step is not required for you. Right? So if you are an average person, definitely we need to work through these steps. So let's see, how do I solve this problem? Now, once I have my problem stated, I'm going to draw a table, or I'm going to print something like this. I have these boxes here, all this table box. And once I have those boxes, well, I'm going to put this problem into my options into these boxes in my table. So my option was buy a new house. Buy a new house. That was one main decision I'm trying to make. But what alternative do I have? So if this is the primary problem, and what alternative can I try? So to buy a house, what else can I do? Do I need to buy a new house, or I can try something else? So wait until next year. That would be one option for me. Not this year. I think I have in my statement, buy a new house. Okay, I think I need to add here, buy a new house right now. Oh, I do. I'm planning to buy a new house right now, but here I put them into list of I found different option for me, right? Don't buy this year, wait until next year. And maybe the reason I want to buy a house was I was living in an apartment, so it was quite a problem. So I need to move to a place where it is closer to my school, so I don't need to commute a lot. But I like to drive, so probably that might not be very appealing option for me. Move closer to her work, my partner and my wife, maybe moving closer to her so we don't commute. Both of us don't need to commute a lot, so one of us can commute lesser. That might be another option. Move to a larger apartment. If my apartment that I'm living in is too small, maybe I just need a bigger apartment, not a whole house. I don't know. Buy a used house, or not the brand new house. That might be another option. So these are my options, and you can add as many options as you want. So you can continue adding. You need these boxes, to write your consideration, right? So this is my problem. And the next part, what I did here is I thought about this buying a house, right? That's my problem. And what options do I have? Well, if you think of the options, I will add here. I will add one more option. So I'll add here new house, my new house. Now, if I have all these options here, this is like my plan. I'll just have that in perspective. I'm not going to fill this box. I'll just use this. The best decision is like buying a new house. But before I decide to go for that, I will look into some other problems that I can use. Now, I have some consideration here. Comfort, the feeling good, having enough space. Instead of living in small apartment, move to a bigger space. Move to a house where you have different rooms. You can do a lot more freedom for yourself. You can have more freedom for yourself. And in terms of finance, how that is going to affect me in terms of my income, my expenses, all the utilities, and new expenses that would be added if I buy a house. And travel distance, commute. So you can word either way. So I can word like financing, or commute, and psychological stress, how that increase or decrease stress. Now, if these are the options, now these are the consideration for my problem, and these are options for my problem, and these are potential options. Now, which one is the best? Now, honestly, if you ask me, off guard, like which one is the best for me, I don't know. If I have to answer without doing some homework here, so that's what I'm going to show you guys. Now, next, I'm going to do some homework. I actually added another problem, another consideration here: community. Feeling close to people that I know and I care for. So I also need to include that in my consideration. Now, these are X. These are options. I'm going to mark them as X, and Y is these consideration. So these Y's are the consideration, right? Now, I'm going to use a numerical data to evaluate my problem right here. Now, how well does each alternative satisfy each consideration? Now, these are alternatives, right? These are alternatives. These are alternatives, and these are consideration. Now, I'm going to evaluate each alternative on each consideration. Now, before I go there and look into each option, I need to fill this box. Why? Well, I need to think how important are these considerations in my current problem, which is buying a house. So comfort wise, well, it's very important to me. So I'm going to write 5. Money wise, well, if I have a partner, my wife and I, if we can work together, it might not be like that of a big issue, but it's still a big issue because it will be lifelong commitment, almost lifelong commitment. Distance, I would say not very important because I like to driving, so wherever I live doesn't matter. So in terms of consideration, I'm giving points right here. I'm showing you this. 5 points means very important and not important at all. So coming back here, distance wise, like somewhat important but not extremely important. Stress, I think I can cope. I'm not very easily stressing person, so stress is like in between. And community, yes, I do care about community, being close to family, being close to people I know. So those are my rating for consideration in this problem. Now, since we're here, we got this far. Again, I lost my mouse here. Um, Now I need to look into each option. I'm going to be a little quick. I'm not going to spend too much time, but I just wanted to show you guys, what would be the best thing to do for my problem. Now, in terms of comfort, waiting until next year, does that satisfy my, does this consideration satisfy my alternative? Waiting until next year, what does that do to my comfort? It does not. So it's like I'm not happy in my small apartment, at least when I was in this process. So it does not satisfy my option uh, in terms of comfort. How about money? Yes, it is good, but it's still I need to pay my rent, everything. So it's like a somewhat satisfied, right, in terms of money. Distance, right now, it's good, but commuting is not a big deal for me. I would say like, in between. And stress, it does lead to some stress, but it's not extremely stressful living in an apartment because you have to share, you have to do everything in that small space. Community, not so much, because the area I live in, they're all students, the university area. That's why it's not a big communal area. But I do have my friends visiting because I'm close to some of my friends. So that's how I see that waiting until next year in the same place in terms of comfort, money, distance, stress, and community. Now I'm going to skip these two alternative, or actually three, and I'll show you guys this. Buy a used house. Comfort wise, now I'm not going to buy the house that is built in 1800. That's like good for, I don't know, to me it's very old. It's over 200 years old. Everything's going to fall apart. I'm not going to buy a house that old. So if I buy a house, I would be giving a range that would be something that's like after 200,000. I mean, after 2000 years, 2000, the year. Now, if I buy a house in that range, any house that is after 2000, what do you think about comfort? Now, house, their life is pretty, the solidity is pretty long. So being 20 years old house does not mean anything to me. It's pretty good. It's very solid. They can last longer. I might have minor changes. So in terms of comfort, I would say this satisfies pretty good, right? Money wise, it's going to be good. Why? Because, well, it's not going to be as expensive as new house, so it's going to be good. But still I have to spend big chunk of money. Distance wise, I would like to go a little further away from school so I can drive. I like to drive, so I would say, yeah, why not? And stress, I don't think it will stress me. Definitely it will be a little bit of work, but in compared to where I'm at now, this is going to help me to have lesser stress. And community, yes, I'm going to move closer to where my family and friends are, so I'm going to go there. Now, if this is the outcome for these two options, and you do the same with these guys, right? I think I gave you guys activities where you can try these options. So I hope you're following the instruction. So right here, now how do you calculate the actual number for this option? Well, what you have to do is, like the formula says, x times y. Now x is 5 times y is -2. That will lead to -10. Money wise, 4 times 1 is going to lead to 4. 2 times 0 leads to 0. 3 times -1 leads to -3. 5 times 1 leads to 5. Now you add this up. -10 plus 3 is -13. Now -13 plus 9 would be left with 4 positive. So the score for this option, this waiting until next year, is 4. Now this problem, buying a house next year, used house. Now I'm going to multiply positive 2 times 5, because that's the considered rating, would be 10. And 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 2, again 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3. 5 times 2 is 10. Now I know I did a little bit exaggeration because I want to show you guys, but actually it's not very exaggerated. It's pretty close to what I actually did. So I used this similar chart when with my partner. You know, we worked together to solve this problem. 10 plus 10 plus 10 is 20, plus 3 is 23, to 25 plus 4 is 29. So the score for buying a used house seems to be pretty high. Now for option, buying a used house has like a pretty higher scoring. And let's assume, I didn't do this math, let's assume I had like a 10, like closer to her it's similar 10, and moving to a larger apartment, maybe a little bit appealing, 15. Now let's say these are the score I got for all these options. Now what happens? Well, I don't know. I can see there is a range. Well, there are way we can calculate this outcome, right? So what you have to do is, like we did, using these numbers. Oh, sorry, still I lose my mouse cursor. So I use these numbers to rate each option, and I came out with this outcome, this calculation for each option. Now how do I assess? How do I assess my calculation? There's 3 ways you can do. Number 1 is overall assessment. This is what you do. It like on the various options, you determine each consideration like we did and take a whole number or overall rating for that option, right? So I take that overall number for the rating. Now if I go back to my problem, if you look at the whole solution set, which one has the highest rating? Well, definitely buying a used house has the highest rating. Now again, this might not be true to you if you are filthy rich. If you have a lot of money and if you don't think about money, I don't need to worry about money at all, then it might be like more positive too. And you don't care about community, then this one number will change. So each option will change. This is because this is very subjective. To me, 29 is very high number for this option, right? So highest possible score, now I need to give you that. Now highest possible score for these each consideration would be you multiply this 5 by 2 and all these number by 2. Now that would be 5 times 2 is 10, 4 is 8, 2 is 4, 3 is 6, and 5 is 10. Now the ideal solution would be 10 plus 8 is 18, plus 4 is 22, plus 8 is 28, 38. Now ideal solution has 38, right? That would be the ideal solution. I think I did it right. Yeah. So ideal solution has 38 as the highest score, but let's keep that on the side note. But if you compare these numbers, the best solution for my problem is buying a used house. That's called overall assessment. That's what we did. Now when you have overall assessment, there's another way you look at it. Now you need to do dimensional comparison. Now in dimensional comparison, what you do is use a method for calculating a decision from worksheet. The alternative that has won the greatest number of consideration with highest score would be selected. So in terms of dimension, and if you go back here, I did this like let's say each option has, each consideration, let's say I chose this in terms of comfort, -1, and moving to close to her is -1, moving to large apartment was +1. Now if you look at these numbers, which one has the highest number? Now forget about this calculation, just look at the consideration points. Now if you look at these, this one has negative and negative, negative, smaller, 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 smaller. This one has the highest score. and this will be my dimensionally still better option. That makes sense. I mean, in order to get the high score, you need to have a high score for each consideration, right? So that tells you the dimensional comparison. Now, in terms of each area, if you look at this consideration in terms of comfort, waiting until next year versus buying a used house seems to have the higher rating, higher score than any of the other options of it here. And you will see that same with the each consideration on each alternative. That gives you dimensional comparison. So which one has the highest score for each consideration. And the last way you can do is a two-third ideal rule is a method for calculating a decision from worksheet. What you do is like whose worksheet totals are at least two-thirds of the ideal choice. That would be satisfying process. That would satisfy your decision. Now that's why I did the total. Now, if I were to score top, these all consideration, if I were to give them perfect satisfactory, that would be all positive too. And that's why we got these numbers, right? If I were to get, let's say, perfect score for all of them, that's like a 38. Now, is 38 and 29 close to two-thirds? What do you guys think? Even 20 to 30 is two-thirds. I hope that makes sense. Now 29 to 38 is definitely higher than two-thirds. It's definitely higher than two-thirds. So our option 29 is better solution for buying house. I mean, for my problem. Why? If you look at two-thirds ideal rule, that's the rule I'll be using, right? The rule of two-thirds ideal rule, and for each consideration to give the highest rating, and the total number should show in compared to the best decision the alternative you have. Like for my example, 29 was for my buy a used house, and the ideal situation would be 38, and this is definitely more than two-thirds rule satisfying. Now that's how you can choose your solution, right? That's a one cool way to solve your problem, again, when you make decision for something that affects your life, like buying a house, moving to a different state, choosing a partner. That might be another interesting thing. So I want you guys to try this out, see if you can solve your problem, and you might be surprised. I used to do this in class. Unfortunately, I can't do it, but I want you guys to try after listening to lecture, or for your other problems. So these are all kind of a summary of what we talked so far. Now, when we make those decisions, right, we have some dilemma. After we make those choices, there's a little bit of lingering idea, like, oh, I don't know if I did the best. I don't know if buying used house would be the best for me, right? If I were to choose this buying a used house, which I did last year. So I did this formula, and so far I'm satisfied with my alternative and all the options. I ran through all the consideration. My chart was way complicated than this, the one I'm showing you guys. Why? Because again, it's a years of commitment. Why shouldn't I? Right? And I also did similar problem solving for when my wife and I were planning for a baby. So all these consideration help you to prepare better and increase. Remember, Harvard University, Arizona State University, and Nevada University, each one has only 0.5, and Arizona had like 1% and 5%. Now total you got 6.5% chance versus only 0.5, right? If you only have one option, if I only had this option, I wouldn't know if buying a used house is better than any other options available. So that's why it's a big mess here. If you are following the lecture, you definitely understand all my writing here, right? It's a little messy though. So if I had different options, then I can compare 1 versus 6.5, 0.5 versus 6.5, 1 versus 6.5, and 5% versus 6.5. So which one is better? Definitely 6.5. That means it's good to have many options. And when you have multiple options, you see why your best option is best. So that's a one way to look at it. But when you do this, you have some lingering thought. You are now done with the problem, you chose it, but there's a lingering idea. I don't know if I did the right thing. You need some commitment and stick with that evaluation. Now that is extremely important. And this conflict comes from we call in psychology cognitive dissonance. It's a theory based on the notion that people want their beliefs, attitudes, and action to be consistent. Now, we all would love to do that, right? Whatever I believe should be my attitude. Whatever is my attitude should show in my action. Let's say I have a belief that everybody should be treated equally. That means when I have my friends gathering, I better treat everybody equally, right? Or that at least show that attitude. And when I need to do things together, I will share work. We all share work and do together. Now, is that true for every behavior you have? Not really. There are times when there are dissonance, there's an inconsistency, well, an unpleasant internal state, that thing that you go through in your mind, that is dissonance. Something does not feel right. That's cognitive dissonance. And now you need to reduce that. When you don't feel something right inside, you will be questioning, okay, what do I do? Do I change my belief? Do I change my attitude? Do I change my behavior? I don't know which one is easy, right? We will see. We reduce dissonance by changing our belief or attitude so that what we do is according to our action. Oh, it seems like changing belief and changing attitude is easier than changing your action. Now, I'll give you guys one classic example. If somebody is smoking, whether it is a traditional cigarette or now more advanced like a electronic cigarette. So if you believe that smoking is bad, and every time somebody smokes or somebody smells that who has smoked, you have a little bit of negative attitude or your negative look. I'll just write negative look. You don't like it, you don't appreciate, but you also smoke secretly. You smoke secretly. Now, your belief about smoking is bad and your attitude about smoking is like not cool, don't do it, but your action is exact contrary to whatever you believe there. Now, which one do you think you will change? Do you think you will stop smoking, or do you try to adjust this part? Well, smoking is not all bad. Not all bad, right? And, well, I don't think I need to ridicule. No need to ridicule people. No need to ridicule people. But I will continue smoking. I hope this example makes sense. So here you have a conflict inside your belief, attitude, and your behavior. Instead of changing your behavior, you would change your belief or your attitude. Why? Behavior changing is not easy, right? So that's where you need to think about, okay, I need to resolve this dissonance and I have to find a solution. Well, the way we do that is, I think I need to show you guys a couple more ideas. How to reduce this dissonance, change attitude to be consistent with behavior. Now we change our attitude. Diet don't really work anyway. So let's say, smoking doesn't hurt anyway, like the example I used. So you're changing your attitude about whatever you thought about diet or smoking. Acquire supporting information. So once you change your attitude, you will find many overweight people live long, healthy life. So you try to convince yourself. What you did here is called confirmation bias. You try to reduce your dissonance by looking into evidence. Those people are overweight and they live longer, so that means diet is not an issue. And also in our previous example, those who smoke regularly still live their life expectancy is 80 plus, so I don't need to worry about dying earlier. So you acquire supporting information. Trivialize the behavior in a question. You look down at your behavior like smoking. I'm just doing it, doesn't hurt to anybody. I don't bother anybody, and I don't need to bother anybody when I do this, and I can do my work. So what you did is like you kind of minimize the problem. Restore positive self-evaluation. I like the way I look regardless of my weight. So I like the way it feels, make me feel smoking, so I will continue doing it. So this is how you try to reduce those dissonance, right? And none of them are helping you to change your behavior. That's the interesting part about cognitive dissonance. So when you make decision, you may have some of those lingering thoughts, and you want to uh, change that, but make sure you are somewhat committed. So I'll go back to the previous slide. So you make sure you commit to that decision you're making. And when you are committed, like you started the process, like a foot in the door process, and when you do this, people are more likely to comply with the largest request after you first comply for the smaller one. Like we did, like you signed a petition, now you would contribute to donation. You agreed to choose like a used, buy a used buy a used house. Let's say if I looked into all the options and I thought like this is the best thing to do, well, I'm gonna stick to it, right? And perspective taking is the ability to see an issue from the other side's perspective. So what you do is like, oh, you look at some people who already bought used house. Let's see how they did. Let's listen to some of their opinions. Nowadays, it's super easy. You go to one of the realtor website, let's say a realtor or some kind of website, and you look at the people, those who bought used house, and read their comment. Oh, we don't have HOA, homeowner association. Oh, you don't need to pay certain fees, and you have a better yard, you have a multiple garage, and all these options. You take their perspective and you look at, okay, I think I can commit to my decision. And several studies have documented advantage of taking perspective. I think I cannot emphasize enough, perspective is such a huge part in critical thinking process. And one thing I think I earlier talked about it is that you don't want that later, the hindsight aspect of the problem. It's you're kind of regretting. You were saying that I knew something bad is going to happen, so I should have known this, I should have changed this, should have been known before the decision was made. This is not helpful. This is not helpful. And this happens, hindsight happens, when you make decision without proper evaluation, with this like distorted memories, or you also did not look into every possible option and all the consideration. So not good, not good in your commitment. This will make you a little regret about your choices. So this is how we see, now going back, these steps, if you guys try, it will help you to find the best solution, at least somewhat best. I wouldn't call it best, but the better solution. There you go, better solution to your problem, rather than making some whimsical choices or just like face value decisions. So it's pretty much for this lecture. I'm going to see you guys in next video.